Well, look, let's jump into this, man. We've got plenty to talk about. We'll do a brief recap on the wild card games, and then we'll obviously spend the majority of our time looking ahead to the divisional round. So, look, I mean, you went through, you made some calls last week. You were rolling solo last week, and you made some wild card round calls, and pretty well overall. You did pick the Browns to beat the Texans, which a lot of people did, and that game wasn't even close. I mean, we unfortunately saw the end of the Joe Flacco era in Cleveland as their rescuer there. And look, Houston looks they looked really good in that game. I don't know how they're going to look against Baltimore upcoming. I don't know what's going to happen from here, but they looked pretty daggone good in that game against Cleveland. And I will say, on this show, you and I from the beginning of the season, we're pretty high on the Houston Texans.
Absolutely.
On the talent level, on the coaching staff, just across the board, really felt like they had put a lot together. But this was pretty daggone impressive what they did to Cleveland.
This was surprising. I mean, did you? I fully expected Cleveland to win, but I said, because I'm going around with the kids. All right, give me your predictions, and of course, they're just going to go with the cool team, and they're Texans. I was like, all right. Well, I think Cleveland's going to win, but I think it's going to be a one-score game, and it was a one-score game. I think like 4 minutes into the first quarter. And it just never let go from there. It was, it was 10 points at halftime, which a lot of people don't remember or realize because of the final score. But that was a 24, was it 24-14? Yeah, 24-14 at half. So you kind of forget that. You're like, man, this was only a 10-point game at halftime, and Cleveland really couldn't have played any worse.
Yeah.
And, there was one thing, and I didn't mention it last week, but, it was one thing that was always kind of on the back of my mind is that at some point those turnovers for Cleveland were going to catch up to them. Now, I didn't think it was going to be Houston that was going to take advantage of those, but that's what it was, man. Joe, you can't. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure we'd have to go back into the annals of NFL history to see the last time a team won when it threw 2 pick sixes in back-to-back drives. I don't imagine that's a very high success rate. So, but I mean, look. Flacco was a great story. There was nothing, nothing short of just fun. I mean, really, it was just fun to see him come off the couch and lead this team. But, we had talked about it. There was 8 picks in 5 games. And it was like, man, this guy, he's putting up 300 yards. He's throwing 3 touchdowns. But in the playoffs, man, you just cannot turn the ball over and expect to win. And that's what happened.
Yeah, it was tough. And Houston played well, but they really just they were very opportunistic. We see games all the time where a ball's batted up in the air and the guy almost intercepts it but doesn't, hits the ground, almost makes that that recovers that fumble, but they don't. Houston was in the right place at the right time on all of those plays, and they took full advantage. They weren't just picking it off and then going down. They're looking to make the return. They're looking to and they did. And so it isn't going to happen all the time like that. They looked particularly good that game. And I mean, it was all clicking for them, right place, right time, and they had the right strategy. And I mean, let's face it, right? We've been giving D'Amico Ryans a lot of credit from the time they hired him, really. And this is a defensive guy, a defensive coordinator coming over there into the head coaching role. And, he took his time and he really started to pick apart that Browns offense. And it worked. I mean, they had a strategy and the strategy worked. And, they made the Browns fairly one-dimensional. And once they started doing that, they could start sitting on those routes and the Browns receivers weren't really doing Flacco any favors.
No.
But still, at the end of the day, it was a tough game and Texans looked really good. And if you're the Browns, that's not the way. It's one thing to go out in the wild card round. It's another thing to go out looking like that. That's really not the way you wanted that season to end after everything they had fought through. They ended up looking pretty bad.
now's probably not the time to get into it, but where does Cleveland go from here? I don't know.
We could do
The
a whole
assumption
show
is,
just on that, a whole episode
yeah,
just
that's
on what's
exactly right.
happening with Cleveland as
Now
the
the way
Browns
they
turn.
now the way they manipulate the cap, they'll probably go out and get Justin Jefferson and everyone else, somehow fit him in under the cap somehow.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I don't know how you go from 11 wins to out in the first round and then come back from that. I mean, I guess they can hang their hat on like, well, we didn't have a quarterback all year, but are you going to really have that same type of defense next year? Just that same type of magic that happened? That's a tough way to go out, man. That is not what I expected whatsoever. And why I expected Cleveland to win a playoff game is really beyond me. It's about as much as me thinking, the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to win a playoff game at this point. So I don't know why, but I did not expect them to only put up 14 points and go out the way they did. That's quite a whimper. But again,
I wasn't surprised that the Texans won, but I was surprised at the way that they won.
Yeah. Yeah, I just thought it was going to be a close game. I really did.
Yeah.
I thought this was going to be a back and forth, one score game. And no, it was not even close. It was so uncompetitive after the first half that it just turned into a laugher.
No, and the last thing I'll say about it is that if you're the Cleveland Browns, you're fighting against the reputation of being the Cleveland Browns. That's what you're doing at all times. And so when you're doing that, when your sole purpose as the Cleveland Browns is to fight against your own reputation as being the Browns, you can't go out and be humiliated like this in the first round because it falls in perfectly to what your MO is. As a team, as an organization, it's like people forget all about the work that you did to manage to get there in the first place and how impressive that was. And all they remember is how you were completely embarrassed and looked like you didn't even belong in the playoffs. And that's just the way it goes for them. And I don't see it changing anytime soon, regardless of the talent.
No, same.
But let's move on. Chiefs Dolphins. I don't know. What did you think there? Any surprises?
No, only because Miami's coming to play in negative 24 degree weather. It just doesn't make any sense how they were going to win this one. And they just had been playing so poorly. We'll get to the Bills. Like the Bills couldn't have been a hotter team coming into the playoffs. And honestly, the Dolphins couldn't have been a worse team, and that just carried over. And this is a team too. I was thinking this after this loss. How can you make this team better? What can you do to make this team any better than what it is?
They're loaded.
Absolutely loaded. And it's all right. Do you figure out, is Tua not going to be, the guy? Is Tua just not the answer? Because I don't know what else it could possibly be. You have everything you could possibly need on that offense, and they managed to put up 7 points.
Yeah.
Even if
the
it's
defense
just
too. Yes, they've had some injuries, Bradley Chubb and stuff like that. But still, you look at the offense and the defense, that is such a stacked roster on both sides. And really, statistically, was a pretty balanced team between offense and defense. What are you supposed to do? And the problem is, they're built for the regular season. And, the postseason is a different animal. And it's rare that we see teams that are strictly built on speed and finesse do really well in the postseason. And the Dolphins are built on speed and finesse, at least right now. And that's what they're relying on. And that doesn't usually win you a lot of games in the postseason. Now, if you want to go back to, the Rams under Kurt Warner and, Isaac Bruce and these guys, the greatest show on turf. Okay. They could be a finesse team and win because they were just a high-flying, explosive offense, and that did carry over pretty well for them. But that's pretty rare. Pretty rare.
Absolutely. Yeah. Is Miami frauds? If you go back and look at their record this year, we saw who they beat up on. Yeah, you're better than a 2-win, 3-win Jets team. You're better than the Patriots, but against good teams, they were not good. So maybe this is something we should have seen all along, and we just didn't. We got enamored with the speed. We got enamored with the quick scores. Even that game, I was like, all right, well, one quick score, Tyreek flashing down the
Mm-hmm.
middle, this game is a different game. But no, I mean, they're going to have to go back, and I think they will. Go back. And I still think McDaniel is a great coach, but yeah, they gotta. You have to figure out how to be built for the postseason because it is just a different animal. It really is, and
Yeah.
I don't know if I can explain it. Maybe weather plays a big factor into it. I don't know. I mean, this game should have been in Miami. I mean, they really had a
Mm-hmm.
3-game lead, 4-game lead with 5 to play, something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, it's incredible.
This game should have been in Miami. Is this a different game if it is? Maybe. I mean, it's very possible. I mean, you went from 70, whatever it was in Miami, that game, 73, 4 degrees, to playing in negative temperature. I mean, that's got to
Yeah.
play a factor into it. Yeah, I don't know what's next for them. But listen, Chiefs are kind of built for this. Chiefs know how to win the playoffs. So
Yeah.
we look at them as a team that's kind of like, what are they? They're an 11-win team who just won a playoff game and is 1 game away from the AFC Championship game. So never count that team out for sure.
No, agreed. They've got the pedigree. We talked about it. I said in the beginning of the season, really, that, as a general rule, best coach, best quarterback, bet on that team. And it's hard to argue that the Chiefs have the best coach and the best quarterback. And so that doesn't mean you can overcome everything.
Right.
But if you look at the teams that are successful, those are the two things that really come into play the most frequently is coach and quarterback. And if we go back and we look, and we're not going to spend, a ton of time doing this, but in the wild card round, you had the Texans and the Browns. Well, CJ Stroud versus Joe Flacco. Okay, quarterback's taken care of. D'Amico Ryans maybe a little too early. I'm still going to go D'Amico over Kevin Stefanski, but I understand maybe some people wouldn't because Stefanski's a little bit more proven. D'Amico's new. Fair enough. But minimally, you're not going to be able to give, if you give one of them a tie, the other one's going to the Texans, right? And they're winning. Dolphins Chiefs, clearly, if you had to choose between coach and quarterback, you're going to take Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes over Tua and Mike McDaniel. That's just the way that it is. And then when we move into the games that we're getting ready to talk about here, Packers, Cowboys, Rams, Lions, Steelers, Bills, Eagles, Bucks. I mean, these are the determining factors in a lot of these games. It's coach and quarterback. It really comes down to those two things. And, speaking of, why don't we just jump into the Packers and Cowboys? I mean, I don't know. Was any of this a surprise? I understand that Green Bay was a 7 seed going against a 2. Like, I get that. But it's the Cowboys. They're not a real 2. Like, that's not a real number 2 seed team. The Cowboys are a 2 masquerade, or I'm sorry, they're a 7 masquerading as a 2. And that's largely because of the division that they play in. And people are content to turn a blind eye to the fact that half of the teams in their division are terrible, and the other team was horrible for the last third of the season and won 1 game. So, Dallas had some wins on there that they didn't earn, but Dallas is a very good regular season team. We know that. It's just
3
not
straight
relevant.
years.
It doesn't matter.
3 straight
That's
years
right.
of 12 wins.
And
I'm a little
let's
surprised.
face it, this is also the ascendance of Jordan Love.
It really is. This was a great win for him. This was a great, and I heard Harry Douglas today on the Pat McAfee show, and he really thinks that the Packers wide receivers are going to be a problem in the next couple of years. He thinks that's going to be the best wide receiver group in the NFL.
I think they've taken 6 in the first 2 rounds over the last few years. I mean, it's just they've been stacking the wide receivers.
Yeah, and Christian Watson, I'm not mistaken, I don't even think he caught a pass this game, and he is their technical wide receiver 1. So,
right.
Yeah, I mean, they're such a young team, and they're building them the right way. And I think maybe we saw that Green Bay knows how to draft and stash quarterbacks. 1 time, okay. 2 times, man, I don't know. That's it's there's a trend going on there. So maybe they just know how to do it the right way. And, Love's going to have every opportunity to to be that franchise guy. And look, he's already putting up those numbers that backs it up. I said at preseason, and I know you disagreed a little bit, but I just saw the throws this kid was making, and I even saw it in this game, and I'm like, these are the same throws, the same way they're being thrown as Brett Favre would throw, as Aaron Rodgers would throw. That back foot off of his back foot throw for the touchdown in the end zone. I was like, I've seen two other guys do this, and they both played for the Packers. Like, it's uncanny how much these guys, just look like one another. It's absolutely crazy. So it's it's I'm a little surprised, though. I really will say I'm a little surprised. And I don't know why. I shouldn't be. I should never be surprised. But I thought that team had a great defense, and I thought that offense was playing well enough that they would be able to win at least one game. It's a little surprising. I don't know. I guess I shouldn't have been surprised, but I'm a little surprised.
Well, as you well know, and anyone listening to the show that has been listening for a while well knows, is that, I have always been very critical of the Cowboys, and it's never because of talent. It's because of mental weakness. They're a mentally weak team. They're a mentally weak organization. And that's like, at the end of the day, that's what it really boils down to. And they don't win when the lights are bright. They disappear. And, that's just who they are. That's what they do. And when you have a team that's built like that, and that's what happens, then it's going to be an issue. And they're a team that, they can't handle the bright lights. They never can. And we were texting about this the other day, but it's mental weakness. It's weakness. And part of it is entitlement, because, they have the best facilities. They have all the best things. They have everything given to them. They win games in the regular season, and they get all hyped up, and they believe their own hype. And, when is the last time, since the 90s maybe, that you could look at the Cowboys and say, that is just a vicious, physical team that imposes their will on people? That's not their DNA. That's not who they are. That's not what they're about. And their coaching is the identical mirror of that. Take out Mike McCarthy, right? Okay, well, who was before Mike McCarthy? Jason Garrett. Okay, keep swapping them out. These are guys that do not have that type of physicality. They're guys that don't coach that type of physical dominance and aggression. They're X's and O's guys. And X's and O's win you a lot of regular season games. But the mental side, the physical dominance, that's where it comes in a lot more in the postseason. And that's where you separate the wheat from the chaff with a lot of these teams. And, Miami is kind of the same thing we were just talking about, right? So I'm not surprised. I mean, I get it from a talent perspective, but outside of that, I'm not overly surprised. Dallas did what Dallas does.
That's another team, man. I'm telling you, we're going to spend a whole entire show one of these upcoming weeks about what can these teams do? Like, what can Dallas do?
Yeah.
They're tied to Dak at this point. I mean, he's up for an extension. Are you just going to let him go? Or are you going to just try Trey Lance and see if maybe he can be the difference maker? There's nothing about Trey Lance that makes me think he's any better than Dak Prescott.
No.
So I feel like we have the Cowboys. I feel like the Cowboys have just swapped out Tony Romo for Dak Prescott.
Right.
Great regular season numbers, and just can't do anything when it comes to playoff time.
Yeah.
And that's tough to do. I mean, that's going to be a 20-year period, that 15-year, 18-year period, whatever, that you're going to have two quarterbacks that are pretty much exactly the same. Put up great numbers in the regular season. Always kind of in that discussion. Is he a great quarterback? Is he an MVP? And then come playoff time, disappears.
Well, no, and it's great too, because, I have something, because we just, of course, this time of year, you always have the historical aspect of this. Let me take this back from the beginning, because we're going to want to remember Dallas Cowboys and one Tony Romo, who is now irritating on people on TV, used to be irritating on the football field. And here we go, Dallas, Seattle in the playoffs, and 1:19 left in the game. Dallas setting up for what should be a game-winning, you would assume, 19-yard field goal on Mr. Tony Romo as the holder.
Well, here's Gramatica. Romo holds. 19-yard field goal attempt. Oh, it is fumbled by Romo, and then Romo's going to run to the end zone, and he's going to get tackled by Jordan Babineau.
Yep. That's the Dallas Cowboys. Like, put it on the tombstone. Like, that's the Dallas Cowboys. They can get down to the game-winning 19-yard field goal, but they're going to find a way to screw it up. And that's in the DNA of the team. I said this in our group chat. At this point, even though I'm not a Jerry Jones fan, I actually empathize with Jerry Jones because he's owned that team. He has spent the money. He's built them world-class facilities. He has done everything you could pretty much do as an owner. Yes, he meddles too much. Yes, he runs his mouth too much. But outside of that, he's done everything you could possibly do as an owner to support the team, to be successful, to help this team win a Super Bowl. And year after year, season after season, coach after coach, quarterback after quarterback, they all fail. They all fall apart. Because, again, it's the mentality of the organization. I understand that. Most people watching that team can see it, but I do empathize with the guy that, it's not because he's, tried to cut corners. It's not because he's tried to, not properly support the team. It's just the opposite. He's done everything. He wants so badly to be a world-class organization. He really wants it. He just doesn't have it, and he can't seem to get it there. And at this point, it's way too long, way too many years to be considered a coincidence at this point or bad luck or anything else.
Absolutely. Again, it's got to be a cultural shift there. I don't know exactly how they fix it. It's got to start with coaching. But again, he's loyal to a fault, or maybe not loyal, or just doesn't want to be wrong. I don't know what it is.
I think that a lot of times that's a big part of it.
They held on to Jason Garrett probably for 2 years too long, and now it's like, all right, is he gonna? Everyone just assumes he's gonna fire Mike McCarthy. He probably won't, and they'll be right back in the same situation next year.
Yep. And if you're the Dallas Cowboys and you don't fire Mike McCarthy now, with the number of and quality of head coaching candidates that are available to you, then you might as well just give him a 10-year deal, because there's not going to be a better time for you between Jim Harbaugh, Mike Vrabel, Bill Belichick, Pete Carroll. There's just so many guys. And, I think there's a good chance there's going to be one or two more out there here pretty soon. But even without that being the case, just the ones that are already available. Come on, man. If you're not gonna make a move now, then you're just never gonna make a move. So don't worry about it. Just give the guy a 10-year deal and sit back and just see what happens. And don't just take the stress right off your plate. Don't even have to think about it. There's not going to be any coach controversy. You're never going to replace him. Give him a decade. Jerry might not even have a decade. He's like 81. So at this point, just sign him to a death deal. You're going to give him the last 10 years of your life. You're going to sign over to Mike McCarthy if you're not going to make a move now. How you're not going to go to a Belichick or a Vrabel, if no one else. Okay, I'm not going to say you're going to get a Harbaugh. I doubt you'd even get a Harbaugh. I don't think you'd go there. But separate from that, if you're not going to go after a Belichick or a Vrabel at this point, then you deserve what you get. Right? That's the bottom line if you're the Cowboys.
No, I don't disagree with you. I think he thinks he knows better than everyone else, and he doesn't want to be proved wrong again.
Well, let's talk to some people that, let's talk about some people that some were proved right and some were proved wrong between the Detroit Lions and the LA Rams. And this game went about the way that you would anticipate a game like this going, like just the karma, the universal laws that came together to make this a 1-point Detroit Lions victory with Jared Goff going against Matt Stafford. The first playoff win in Detroit in 32 years. I mean, just an incredible run of things here, and really, it was a pretty daggone good game. Everyone played well. Both quarterbacks played well, and really, there was some clock management questions, and when you should be going for it on fourth down, and when you shouldn't, and some things like that. But outside of that, I mean, this was what you wanted this game to be.
It was the game of the week. I don't know how. I mean, unless you're really just a diehard fan of any of the other teams, this was for sure. As a football fan, this was the game of the week.
Yeah.
I mean, someone had mentioned, and I was like, "Is this true?" And I'm like, "Yeah, golly, they're absolutely right." This was the first time that anyone ever texted about the Detroit Lions winning a playoff game, because there was no texting the last time they won a playoff game.
32 years ago, man.
Crazy.
Yeah. It's unbelievable.
Man, I swear, like, there's sometimes where I'm like, man, is Dan Campbell a good coach, or is he just a good rah-rah guy? Like, I just feel like this, like his style would probably just wear thin if you weren't winning. Look, right now it's working, and they are believing. I mean, and good for Jared Goff. I mean, that's got to feel like great redemption right there. Now, again, you say what you will. If Goff goes out and wins a Super Bowl for Detroit, then maybe we're having a different conversation. But Los Angeles, to me, won that deal because they won a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
and that's the ultimate goal. So, I mean, I think they would sign up for that again in a heartbeat. And look, that Rams team is, even with Goff or with Stafford, is a very young team. And they're only going to get better. So they could possibly even be the favorites, depending on what the Niners do or who they lose and what happens. They could be the favorites, to win their division next year. But man, that was just such a sweet, like, it could not have felt any better. Like, if I'm Jared Goff, I know, like, they're all going to say the same thing. Like, it's one game, we got 3 more left. Winning a playoff game is not the ultimate goal, but man, this had to feel like his Super Bowl. It really had to. Like, this guy had to be walking on clouds after that game. How could you not? I mean, you were cast away. He was an afterthought to that deal. Really. I mean, it was, the draft picks that they were getting and everything else. And I was like, oh yeah. And Jared Goff.
Yeah.
And what he's done,
have to take him. You have to take him from us. You got to take him. He's part of the deal.
Yeah. And even I think we said it, at the time when this happened, like, Detroit's stuck with Jared Goff for a year, and then, they'll get a high draft pick, and, they'll replace them. And guess what? That just hasn't happened. And I don't expect it to happen anytime soon. He played well, played within himself. And just that's when you talk about that team mentality and that mental aspect of it, that's the Detroit Lions, man. Like, they have that. Like, they're not about flash. Their best receiver, I don't know if I've ever heard him talk. I don't even know what Amon-Ra St. Brown sounds like, because he's not. That's just he's not that type of person, and that's their best receiver, and he's probably a top 5 receiver in the league. And you probably couldn't pick him out of a lineup. If I put a lineup, I'm not sure I could, because he just wears his helmet and goes about his business. And that's a team you can root for. If your team's been out, that's a team you can get behind and definitely root for. So.
Yeah, and coming into the season, I said that Jared Goff was my dark horse MVP candidate, and he's not going to win the MVP. But I will tell you, I mean, if you talk about redemption, that guy went out and threw for over 4,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, had a 97.9 quarterback rating, completed over 67% of his passes. Like, a really, really solid, on that Detroit team. I mean, if you go out and throw for 4,500 yards and 30 touchdowns, nobody's complaining about your abilities. And he's done some good things.
Yeah, those are MVP numbers in some years.
Yes. Yep. Not this year, but yes, in some years for sure. And you look at that and you go, okay, well then, not only does that solve their problem at quarterback, but he's very affordable.
Yep.
People don't understand like that plays such a huge role. And for the record, just so that people know, Matt Stafford threw for under 4,000 yards, 24 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, quarterback rating of 92.5, and completed a little over 62% of his passes. So, there's, if you look at it across the board, now again, I understand there are some various things and health issues with Matt Stafford and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, there's not some big drop off between Stafford and Goff in terms of where they're playing right now and how they're playing.
Yep.
And right now is all that matters. And
Absolutely.
we know looking back, Stafford, when they hang him up, Stafford will have had the better overall statistical career for sure, no doubt about it. But right now, for the right fit for that team, there's no doubt Jared Goff is in the right place at the right time in Detroit.
Absolutely. He's playing like a top 10 quarterback in the league because that's really what he is. I mean,
Yeah.
he really is. And again, as I said, Los Angeles would have taken that deal 10 out of 10 times. But I think Detroit would have taken that deal 10 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
Like there's not been too many times where a deal has happened where you'd be like, dang, that both teams really won that. Los Angeles was all in 2 years ago. Yep. And that was it. They were all in, trading them draft picks, doing everything they could, and they won a Super Bowl. And now Detroit was collecting all those draft picks and trying to build a contender. And here's where they're at. So, I mean, unbelievable how well that worked out for both teams.
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic. Okay, so let's move on here. Steelers, Bills. I'll let you lead on this one here before I jump in with my thoughts.
Did they play?
Well,
I thought that got postponed. I thought that got postponed.
One of them played for sure.
Huh. Well, I mean, again, you talked about it. When everything's even, who do you give the tie to? And that's going to be the team with the better quarterback. And the team just has a better quarterback. The Steelers were a hot team coming in, but obviously we have to look at who they played and who the other teams were without. Buffalo, I mean, after Jihad, after coach comes out, and celebrates, the terrorists, that team really bonded together. And you could say whatever you want. I guarantee that report came out from someone on the inside. And I would guarantee it was because they thought they had an opportunity to get him out of there. And that team could have easily fallen apart from that. And that was something he didn't say like the week that came out. Like that was something that had been said, a year prior, 2 years prior?
Old stuff.
And that team easily could have fallen apart. And they rallied around him. They rallied around that team. Now, firing Ken Dorsey was probably, played a pretty big factor into it. They bring in Joe Barry and he coaches them and they play well. But that was a hot team coming in. I mean, and you're playing in Buffalo. I didn't expect someone that texted me like, "Are you nervous?" And I'm like, "No, dude, I'm playing with house money at this point. Like, I don't expect to win. Like, I don't expect this to be, anything." And Steelers hung around and gives you a little hope, but that's what they do every single game. They just, it's just, you can just never have a game where you're just like, this is an easy win. It's always got to be something. And, it just finally caught up with them. You have a third string quarterback in there playing. Like, what did anyone expect? I mean, sure, it's the playoffs. Anything happen. I will say there was some just, I'm not making excuses, but there were some just egregious calls, plays, things like that took place. Like that Josh Allen 50-some yard run. That dude pretended to slide and everyone stopped. And he just runs through him. And then the very next time, and I texted you, I texted the group. I said, this is why they didn't tackle him, because they're afraid of getting the 15-yard penalty because he started and, well, no, he didn't. Like, go look at the tape. That's not a normal move. That's a move that like, oh, I see people coming, I'm going to slide. Oh, wait, they backed off. So now I'm going to start running again. And then what happens the next time? He slides, someone hits him a little late, 15-yard penalty. So it's like, you can't win. Like, it's just, it's just too much. There was a non-pass interference call or minimally a holding call that didn't get called when George Pickens was held. Um, you know, the play in the offensive lineman, and I can't remember his name, where he just wasn't even a football play. Like Joey Porter Jr. is going to tackle Stephon Diggs, and this dude just runs right behind him and just smashes into the back of him, gets taken out with a concussion. No call on that. I don't want to make excuses. I just, I hate that like all those things happen and you don't get any calls, and then it just leads to, well, obviously they wanted Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, divisional game. Like, I just let it be what it is, that the Bills were a better team. And I don't think any of those things in of itself really caused the Steelers. Now, had they called Josh Allen for I don't even know what the call would be. Fake sliding? Like, I don't know. Or just call him down at that point. Like, I don't know what that would have done. That's a 50-some yard run that he makes. So, maybe you hold him to a field goal and who knows what can happen. But it didn't. And I fully expected the Bills to win. The Bills are the hottest team right now, in my opinion, going into the playoffs. And, I fully expect them to win next week. I really do. So, I don't know. That's my take. I don't know what's next for the Steelers. I really don't. Tomlin's coming back. It's not going to be a matter of if. It's just he's coming back. But there's got to be an overhaul there to that coaching system. And Najee even come out and said it. I don't know if you saw the post-game interview with him, and he was just like, we essentially, like, things have to change. Like, we have to be more disciplined. Like, there has to be more accountability in this locker room. And it's like, why isn't there? Like, this dude came from Alabama. Like, he knows, like, hey, you better be in your room at 7:59. Why isn't there this accountability with this team? And this could be a team that is just kind of used to how things are, and maybe Tomlin's used to how the players are. Like, yeah, it's great, but yeah, they need something has happened. Like, you can't go this long. This is now 5 straight games in the playoffs that they've given 30 plus points. Something has to change. Again, like, I'm going to sound like an excuse maker, and I'm a fan. So I see things, I guess, that maybe people on the outside don't see, but we have no middle linebacker. We're so many injuries on that defensive side. It doesn't help, obviously. Like, Mark Robinson should never, ever. Michael Walker should never in his life be trying to go one-on-one with a tight end in the NFL ever. And, you've got a linebacker on a tight end, and Josh Allen's just too good. He's going to pick that apart every single time. So, draft's going to help. Offseason's going to help. Free agency hopefully is going to help. But, something's got to change there, because this is getting a little old.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I think the Steelers are dangerously close to moving into Dallas Cowboys territory, which is consistently a solid regular season team and not very relevant in the postseason. And that's not who the Steelers are. Like, that's not their identity as an organization. I mean, the Steelers are 0-4 in the playoffs since 2017, allowing 41.5 points per game. They have a negative 49-point differential and a negative 8 turnover differential. Those are all NFL worsts, and that's since 2017. So, like, that's difficult. And, again, haven't won a Super Bowl since 2009. Super Bowls obviously is the standard for any good team, but you can't be upset that somebody hasn't won a Super Bowl since 2009. But if you look at it, since 2018, the Steelers made the playoffs 3 times. That's including this year, and haven't made it past the wild card round. And that's a problem, and so whatever it is, and I agree with you, Tomlin's coming back. I don't know. When you talk about disciplinary things, that's coaching. Like, that's,
100%.
at the end of the day, like, that's pretty much always a coaching thing. And we've seen a lot of disciplinary things with the Steelers. I don't know if it's Tomlin has just treated the team softly because there's been some turnover and some change, and he's just trying to manage really fragile egos. It's hard to say what the reasoning is, but we've seen what's happened with Deontay Johnson and, all of the repeated incidents that have gone on with the team. And those things can be lived with if you're winning. But when you're not a relevant postseason team, it becomes a lot harder to be able to live with those things. And again, that's the comparison to Dallas, in that you can rack up a lot of regular season wins, but it doesn't mean anything if you immediately go out in the first round of the playoffs every year. And that's what Dallas does. And, and Pittsburgh is starting to fall into that as well. And they should never be in that situation, bottom line.
Yeah, I don't disagree with a whole lot you're saying there. However, most of the time when they're making the playoffs, it's not like they've won 13 games. Like, they're coming in as the 6th seed, the 7th seed, maybe the 5th seed if they're lucky. So it's not like they're, going in there as favorites, a lot of times. So it's a combination of everything. But I mean, again, it comes down to quarterback. So they lost their quarterback. They lost, in my opinion, a top probably 8 quarterback of all time in Ben Roethlisberger, and it's tough to replace that. You have a rookie coming in and Kenny Pickett that was making strides, but really has been hampered with coaching and dealing with all these egos, and plus just shoes to fill. I mean, he's a Pittsburgh guy. Goes to Pitt, didn't want to miss out on the next Dan Marino. So I feel like it was a choice that they felt like they had to take because they missed on Marino. And that's not really anything, to Kenny. But if you remember that draft, he was the only quarterback taken in the first round that year.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, so it's a lot to ask. So maybe they're not, they're better than what they should be. I don't know. I don't know if that really makes any sense. They're winning in spite of themselves. I don't know. So maybe there should have been a regression after Ben retired, and they did, but they didn't really regress the way maybe they should have. I'm not saying they should have been worse, but maybe they should have been worse. So they would have been able to get higher draft picks and be able to, look at some of these guys that maybe they held on to for a year or two longer because, dang, man, we won 9 games this year. Maybe we can turn around and win 11 next year. And maybe you're holding on to guys a little bit longer and you're dealing with more, diva-ish stuff because, man, we're close. Deontay Johnson's a top 20 receiver in the NFL. George Pickens is on his way to being a top 10 receiver in the NFL. And so you kind of put up with that because it's well, we're close. We feel like we're close. So maybe it's just a good hard look that they need to take this offseason and say, man, we're not as good as we think we are or think we should be. And rebuild from that. And I have full faith in Omar Khan. He knocked this draft out of the park. Broderick Jones, our right tackle, has to get better. He started out playing really well and really hasn't played that well. These past few weeks, but there's a lot to build off of. So you just kind of hope all right, let's take a good, honest look this off season and stop hiring from within. And let's get some outside voices in here that can tell us, wait a second, why are we doing it this way? It's you're not progressing. You're hiring from within. You're hiring these guys that have been with you for years. And maybe that's good. It's good to have that loyalty to a certain degree, but at some point, all right, it's time we step away and we bring some outside voices in to show us what we're doing wrong.
Yeah, I think it's tough. I was just looking here. I mean, since 2014, the Steelers have made the playoffs 7 times and have won 3 playoff games. And their record in regular season record in those seasons, they were 11-5 in 2014, 10-6 in 2015, 11-5 in 2016, 13-3 in 2017. missed the playoffs in 18 and 19, where they were 9-6-1 and 8-8, then 12-4 in 2020, 9-7-1 in 21, 9-8 in 22, 10-7 this year. So, I mean, there's a lot of 10, 11, and 12 and 1-13 win seasons in there that, you go in, they clearly have talent. And
Sure,
they're winning
most of
games,
those were
but-
with Ben, though. I mean, the past 2 years without him
right.
were 9-8, 9-8. So that's
Yeah.
all I'm saying. You went from a Hall of Fame quarterback to a rookie and Mitchell Trubisky, which probably was the worst hire free agent signing we've had, and we've had some doozies, and that's got to rank right up there. I mean, there's 2 years in a row that this dude has pretty much threw us out of contention, so he's going to be gone. What to do come training camp? Like, I really don't want a Mason Kenny Pickett training camp battle. Really, I don't. Not to say Mason hasn't played well, because he really did, but I mean, the dude has no mobility. He's a statue back there. It's just to me is not a winning formula in the NFL. I could be wrong. I don't know. I don't know anymore what I know. So
Yeah.
I know this team needs a lot of work. So.
Well, we spent enough time on the Steelers. Let's quickly hit the Eagles and Bucks, which, I mean, this was one of those games that almost makes you feel sick to your stomach, because the Eagles started this season 10-1. This is an historic, epic collapse. Like, we've pretty much never seen how you start a season 10-1 and you end up barely making the playoffs and getting bounced in the wild card round. It just doesn't even seem possible that you could be in that situation and losing to the Bucks. This is, I don't know if it's a bad team. I don't know if it's a terrible coach. But I get the feeling that Sirianni, the honeymoon period, has definitely worn off with Nick Sirianni. I think players don't like him. I get the feeling that he is incredibly hard on them, and that type of thing works when you're winning, but it starts to get really old when you're losing and getting blamed by the coach. And let's face it, right? We talked about it ad nauseum at this point. They lost their defensive and offensive coordinators. Clearly that's going to play a role. That's going to make an impact. But they didn't lose them in week 11. They didn't lose them in week 12, right? So, like, what happened that you were winning games? Now, we know they weren't looking great during the time that they were winning those games, but you were still winning games. How did you then lose 5 of 6 after that and then get bounced in the first round of the playoffs? It just, I can't understand what's going on. Jalen Hurts looks terrible. It's now Jason Kelsey's retiring. That offensive line is going to be in a lot of flux. I mean, this is not a team on the upswing, that's for sure.
No, it's insane. I mean, and their DC gets demoted and they move Matt Patricia up, and that defense didn't play any better. In fact, they probably played worse. I've never seen worse tackling than I did that game. It's absolutely crazy. Like, it's fundamental stuff, and they just cannot. They couldn't get out of their own way.
Yeah.
And again, you lose Kelsey. AJ Brown doesn't play this game. I don't even know if we got a full understanding of why he wasn't there. We see all the stuff that he posted and supposedly again, this is the new breakup now is you go on social media and you scrub everything, from your ex. And that's exactly what they did. So now AJ Brown's up in the air. What's going to happen with him? I'm sure there's a lot of Titans fans that say, we tried to tell him. But he was an angel. He was a phenomenal player for them last year, where you're like, what were the Titans doing? And then just within, not even a full year, you're like, what is happening? What is going on with him? What's going on? And then did you see like Dallas Goddard on the sideline going at Jalen Hurts? First off, Dallas, you shouldn't really have anything to say, because I counted at least 3 drop passes that you had that game. And I didn't even watch the full game. So I'm not real sure what it was. And Jalen's just sitting there just taking it all in. And again, what else is he going to do, right? Like, he's not going to escalate it. He's not going to get back and yell. Like, he's too professional for that. It is wild how this team fell apart like this. And then did you see the fan throwing popcorn on Sirianni? He was walking out. Like, fans are already over it. Yeah. I mean, they had many years of Andy Reid, and I'm sure they said many mean and nasty things to Andy Reid, but I guarantee you, like, no one's ever tried to throw anything on Andy Reid. And Sirianni's just a very unlikable guy.
There's not a piece of popcorn that touches the ground around Andy Reid.
He may have asked for it to be thrown to him.
Yeah, he was encouraging people to throw popcorn.
Yeah.
I heard a story. I don't know for sure that Andy Reid turned an umbrella inside out when he would walk off, hoping to catch soda and popcorn that people were trying to throw on him, and then eat it in the locker room. But that's just a rumor. I don't know what's true.
Yeah, he refused to call timeouts just so they'd lose the game. Well, get me some of them nuggies.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, look, it's bad in Philadelphia, and the flip side of that is, man, Tampa's feeling awfully good today, aren't they? The Buccaneers going in, knocking off the Eagles, and doing it in Tampa, and then in front of their home crowd, Baker Mayfield doing the job. I mean, Baker Mayfield may have had $100 million game last night. He literally may have just made himself life-changing money from being able to pull off that win last night. And it played very well in that game too.
We talked about this all year when because Baker pretty much had a fantastic year all year. I mean, I'm sure there was a game or two where it's like, geez, this is the real Baker. But for the most part, he played awesome. And guess what? Yeah. He played awesome for the Browns before he, dislocated his shoulder and remained out there, and they refused to put him, refused to try to re-sign him, and just couldn't wait to dig their claws into Deshaun Watson. Like, that has to be the biggest fumble, of all time. Like, it just, Deshaun got outplayed by a 40-year-old quarterback who was sitting on his couch looking for the next chapter of his life. Pretty much the same amount of games. In fact, I believe Deshaun may have played one more game, and Flacco had more passing yards than he did, more touchdowns than he did.
I believe Flacco has thrown more touchdowns as a Brown in like the 6 or 7 games that he played than Watson has in his career with the Browns.
It's just embarrassing. Someone said on X that Baker Mayfield is what the Browns were hoping to get out of Johnny Manziel.
Yes.
And they had both, and they let both go. Now, of course, Manziel, well documented, no reason he should have been drafted where he was drafted, and they did right in getting rid of him. But all Baker seems to be is just a team first guy. Like, I don't know. I could be completely wrong, and people could probably say, no, you point to this and this. But from everything I've seen, the dude just cares about winning football. And he goes out there and he plays hurt. And good for him. Like, that had to be, we talked about Jared Goff, like, walking on Clyde out. Like, this had to be just complete vindication for Baker Mayfield. Like, no, I deserve to be in the NFL. I deserve to be a starting quarterback. And you're right. He earned himself a contract. And he's not going to be insanely expensive, which is, again, going to be very, very helpful for the Bucs as they move forward. So, yeah, great win by them. It's always one of those things like, win your division. Well, they won a division with 9 wins. Yeah. So it's kind of like, man,
you don't really know what you have there.
Right. And I, wouldn't be 100% opposed to reseeding when it comes to the playoffs. And that'd be something maybe we could talk about at some point too, if we run out of stuff to talk about. But really, an 11-win, Eagles team having to go 12-win Eagles team having to go play a 9-win team on the road. So, but again, you should have won. You should have won that easily. Yep. Again, I thought they were going to win. Like, I just thought, all right, playoff time. Like, they're going to figure it out. They're going to be, when the tush push didn't work on that 2-point conversion, I was like, this is it. This is an end for them. Like, it's just like one of those things. Like, it worked, and then it stops working, and that's pretty much sums up the Eagles. Whatever they were doing was working. The way Sirianni was coaching was working. Everything was going great. And then it just wasn't.
Yep.
I don't know how they fix that. Is Sirianni gone? Can you fire a guy 1 year after winning the Super Bowl and after winning 12 games the next
Well,
year?
they didn't win the Super Bowl, so maybe you can fire him. You
Well,
fire him 1 year after getting to the Super Bowl.
right.
You wouldn't think that you would, but I do think it's a unique circumstance in Philadelphia. And this has nothing to do with the Eagles as an organization or the city of Philadelphia. But something has gone very wrong there. And they have a very small window of time with this team. And honestly, it may have already passed. Like now you're seeing the AJ Brown thing. Who the heck knows what's going to happen with that? Now Kelsey gone. A lot of people, non-football people, don't necessarily always understand the importance of the center on a team.
Oh,
And
Pittsburgh Steelers know full well what it's like not having a center, going from Marquise Pouncey to a guy who's not even on the team anymore in Kendrick Green. So,
I mean, that's a
that.
crucial part with any, with any team. And, every team goes through it at some point. But the Eagles are firmly in their championship window right now. For Kelsey to retire in the middle of their championship window is also very surprising. And I'm very curious if Jason Kelsey retiring right in the middle of what should be the championship window for the Eagles, if that's not a little bit telling about what's going on behind closed doors. Because normally guys are going to hang on because they know, hey, sometime in the next 3 years, 4 years, we've got a really good chance. And I'm going to at least go year to year. I'm not going to make a 4-year commitment, but I'm going to keep playing because I know we're right there. And something tells me Jason Kelsey does not believe that the Eagles are right there anymore.
That's a good point or a good question. Like, you'll never say it, of course, but you really have to wonder. That's a really, really good point. If he just
because who's going to stand there and go, oh, yeah, I think there's every possibility we could win a Super Bowl, but I'm just going to hang it up, even though I've never won one and I'm desperate to get to the Super Bowl again. Like, no, you're not going to look to give that up. And, and for your last game to be a road game where you get knocked out in Tampa in the wild card round. I mean, come on, man. In a Hall of Fame career, like when you're still playing incredibly well, there's no drop off in the play of Jason Kelsey. For Kelsey, it's just the motivation of, do I want to keep doing this or not? And when you're winning, you want to keep doing it. There's a reason that he came back this year. And it's because he thought that the team had unfinished business and that they could close it out. Now he doesn't want to come back. And he knew it right away. And I think that probably, don't want to read too much into it, but I think that probably tells a lot.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. So do you think they let Sirianni go?
I think they probably should. I don't know that they will, but it honestly wouldn't surprise me. And again, the reason being, because I have a Bill Belichick, because I have a Mike Vrabel, because I have a Pete Carroll. Like, you mean to tell me Pete Carroll couldn't walk right into Philadelphia and make this team pretty daggone successful? I believe he could. You think Vrabel couldn't do something with that? We know daggone well Belichick would be salivating at that opportunity. So if you have all of those coaches available, not to mention a Harbaugh possibly, like, it's an attractive opportunity. And do you need to stick with Nick Sirianni? No, you don't need to, because you have so many other really, really good coaches that are available. And what a great opportunity to hit the reset button and, and remedy this. I doubt they make the move, only because that would just be such a shocking thing. If they do make that move, then they know exactly what the cause of this
100%. 100%. Again, that could be a situation where, the owner is just not wanting to cause all this. But, if he doesn't think they have it, and, you're right with all those. Now, the only problem is that we're getting a lot of head coaching candidates coming open. Yes. And there's only going to be so many top tier guys. Now you might luck into a few, like you can luck into a McVay and things like that. Right. Just scout really well. But for the guys that we would consider top tier, they're going to have their choice. So you're either going to come up with more money. You're going to come up with, giving up more control than you want to really give up. Or you might be getting some of these, second, third tier type coaches. And I don't know if that's what they want either. So
No, agreed.
it could be an issue that there are too many opportunities to come up and like, we already got a coach that's won, I don't know, 25 games in 2 years. So it's like, let's just stick with it for another year because there are so many coaching opportunities coming open. So yeah, we'll see. This next couple of weeks are going to be very interesting.